Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update, where we're always at least attempting to be informed without being overwhelmed. Thank you so much for sharing the link, for liking and subscribing. It's been one of those days we've been running and running just to get here, and glad to even be close to being on time. It's been one of those days, but thank you, those of you that are with us, and we're certainly always grateful for every one of you. And this is a labor of love that we do each week, something that we do as a service to all of our brethren throughout the earth that are watching the news, watching events from a scriptural standpoint, from a biblical point of view, right? And we like to think of that as the 10,000-foot view, seated in Messiah in heavenly places, far above all principalities and powers and all the things that, well, frankly, we have to deal with here on earth, right? And so we take that time to ascend, if you will, into the heavens and look at these things from that perspective. And on that effort, we have, of course, our handy website, remnantwatch.com. I want to encourage you to bookmark that. And this, of course, is maintained by Remnant House. And at the top, you'll always find the banner that'll bring you to our latest broadcast. So a handy banner up there as well. And we do have these guides available free of charge for those of you that would like them. They are basic survival guides, very important actually coming forward in this time. And then we do have a search bar for those that want to search back on articles and look for trends, which frankly do emerge a lot more than you may realize. Many things come up repeatedly. And if you don't track that, if you don't pay attention, well, you'll start thinking some of these stories are brand new. And you'll get deceived because, frankly, it is a lot of things are recycled. And the more you pay attention to it, the more you go, my goodness, are we just on some type of loop? Well, there are some that believe we are, and they may not be too far from the truth. So again, just a big thank you to all of you who share our links, who encourage others to join together with one another. Everything we do, you'll notice, is always to encourage the believers in Messiah to group together, to get together, whether it's we're doing news or Shabbat services or Kodesh or anything else. It's always with the intent that you have a way of using that for gathering together, for uniting, for coming into one accord. And of course, that should be all of our effort. There should be no one trying to divide, if you will. Division is not part of our kingdom. We don't do that. We don't subtract. We add and we multiply. That's what we do. So everybody get on board with that, whether you're in a small fellowship there, wherever you are, or contributing to a larger work like Remnant House or New Kingdom. Either way, we have to continue to work together, do everything we can to reduce strife levels and do nothing to contribute to the atmosphere of combat and competition we find in the world, especially in social media. We need to be very careful about engaging in a lot of that and validating debating as a method. It's really not a very effective method. In fact, debate is the fruit of the reprobate mind, if you look very closely at the effect of the reprobate mind. And so not something that you want to get involved in if you can avoid. And instead, we overcome evil with good. We demonstrate superiority, superior wisdom. Rather than arguing our recipes, we cut pieces of prepared cake, right? Instead of getting on social media and arguing recipes, which is really all you're seeing a lot of people doing, arguing their recipes. So I think this is the way to the blessing. No, I think this is the right way. I think this is the way we'll honor him. And I think this is the correct heart. And again, the heart to honor is good, but doing it correct is going to get results or response. Important that we keep our eye on the prize, if you will. And on that note, let's get into the news. Tonight's top story over here at Remnant Watch is the world's food supply, which I thought was a more important story than the silliness of men who want to shoot at each other. More important than this was the peril that this nonsense put the world's food supply. And so, of course, now the threats. Oh, I'm sorry. This is connected to the wrong story, apparently. Let's make sure we've got it correct here. World food supply. There we go. That was on Carg Island. Different story, but we'll be getting to there shortly. Oh, no, they're not going to let me get to it. Hopefully they will. And they will not. Oh, darn. Sometimes, we get a link, we think it's good, and then when we go back to look at it, it's a problem. But right now, the reports out, if you take a look out there, you're going to find several reports that are discussing the world food supply being in peril by the Iranian efforts. And of course, not only because of the oil that is disrupted, but because also the fertilizer issue continues to become a greater problem as we go forward. So even again, as we talked about, if this problem were resolved immediately, even if their negotiations settle the battles and everything right away, which thankfully we're now hearing that that's the case, and we'll get to that. Even still, it's going to take time for all those wheels to turn, right? That's a long way to float a boat. And so what that means is that you're still got a period of time and maybe actually several years of recovery because of the massive disruption that occurred during planting season, during the time when farmers needed support and so forth. We had massive disruption here. So this is not something that is going to go away easily. And unfortunately, we're all going to see the repercussions of that, if you will. We also did see, and this is the next story we wanted to get to, Trump did threaten to seize Carg Island, another Iranian oil infrastructure. And this happened earlier in the week as we were coming in for this report. And thankfully, cooler heads did prevail. But this got very tense. President Trump said the U.S. military would attack Iran very hard and came very, very hard after them. And I think this is what eventually ended up pushing parties to an actual agreement when the threat was to literally put you out of the oil business, period. Then you have no revenue and no potential for revenue. And my understanding of things that are going on in Iran right now, Iran's economy is in free fall from what I understand. And again, we're not there. We only can go by what we are hearing in the news. But Iran is struggling with their economy as a result of this conflict. It has not been a good one for them. They're raging again. Some food items up over 400%. So if you think things have been rough here, sorry about that, folks. Of course, these paywalls, they get really crazy. But if you think things have been rough here in the United States, that just gives you a glimpse of the way things have been difficult all over the world. And so, again, yes, we've had some increase in price and costs going on across the United States. Many people in the West are feeling the pinch. Well, if you think you're feeling the pinch in the West, believe me, there are other places that are feeling it even more. And so definitely something for us to be sensitive to as we go forward. Don't complain too much because you don't have it as bad as some places. 400% price increase. Isn't that something? And of course, this last week, we did see Iran target Gulf nations with missiles after Trump claimed Tehran asked him to stop the U.S. airstrike. So this became a messy few days as we watched this sort of unfold. And everyone was hoping for a peace deal, but nevertheless, they continue to see damage. Iran launched a barrage of missiles at a trio of U.S. allies in the Middle East early Thursday after American forces carried out a second round of airstrikes in response to Tehran's unwarranted and continued aggression. Of course, written by the New York Post. Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait were targeted by the Islamic Republic, as happened a day earlier after an initial wave of U.S. attacks. And all three Gulf nations are hosts to U.S. military forces, which were targeted in the strikes, but were uninjured. So Despite the targets, we did not suffer casualties. Thankfully, U.S. forces were secured. But nevertheless, we saw continued saber rattling. And so, of course, then we saw the next thing was Iran, of course, did announce that it was closing the Straits of Hormuz. Well, actually, that preceded some of this. And the Joint Top Military Command, of course, wanted to, again, try to exercise control. And this failed. This effort was one that, of course, was I think, last-ditch effort to try to control the narrative. But once the president announced that they would literally put them out of the oil business by taking over Karg Island, I think that's when things started to turn. And so what did happen that I think was wise was we saw Trump cancel plans to strike. And I think that opened a narrow window. So his cancellation, despite taking some heat for that and being made fun of and poked fun of in the media, as it turns out, it may have been a very good move, because it allowed them to sort of save face and pull off a deal. So let's hope that's what happened. Trump touts the progress. President Trump claimed the U.S. has ended the war with Iran after earlier Thursday announced a great settlement that he said would resolve the conflict and reopen the Straits of Hormuz. So they came up with something that, of course, was finally reasonable. And Iran was, of course, asking for unreasonable terms for a while there. So I'm glad to see that they're coming to something they can agree to. No confirmation was coming forth from Iran, despite Trump's pronouncement. So, of course, he was left hanging out there. And you know how much everybody likes to make fun of him if he's hanging out there in even the smallest ways. But in fact, I saw this article where they were keeping track of how many times he said a deal was done. And it was over 38 times that CNN found that the president had announced that he had a deal. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 38 times. Well, that's how many times Trump suggested a deal with Iran was imminent, and at least 38 times since March 23rd. But as it turns out, he was right. He just was a little early and premature in each of those 38 times that he was announcing that the deal could be made. And I think he was calling it into existence by continuing to say it. So they're begging me for a deal, a statement early in April, right? Very far along, he told them in April 15th. I think it's close to over, and predicting we will get a deal in the next day or two, way back on April 17th. And of course, the Iranians would take that as a challenge, and then obviously, as we found out, make negotiations more difficult on purpose. I think in part with no other intention than to besmirk him and make him look bad for having gone out there and said so many of the things that he said. So I don't think he helped himself move this along. He was just too eager to brag and not eager enough to put together the substance that was required to make this deal work. So finally, what we see now coming out, so we finally are seeing some news. Iran has now agrees, and this is confirmed, not to build a nuke, will reopen the Straits of Hormuz, which was open before they started this conflict, and the U.S. to release $25 billion in assets, so assets that the U.S. was holding that belonged to Iran. So again, this is not a payment to Iran. Many people were trying to say that. I looked closely at this, and these were assets that were owned by Iran and were frozen by the West in Trump peace deal. So Trump says Iran agreed to not having a nuclear weapon, and that's a big deal, to reopen the Straits of Hormuz if the U.S. releases $25 billion in frozen assets. So you see that this is not a payment to them. This is the West letting go of bank accounts that were frozen, bank accounts that had deposits in them, and the West froze and held those funds. If any of you have ever had an account frozen, you know how that feels. Well, they did that to an entire country, and they held $25 billion in assets. And so that was now released as part of President Trump's brokered peace deal, according to details released by Tehran on Sunday. Now, Washington and Tehran were expected to electronically sign a memorandum of understanding, and after a virtual meeting designed to set the table for negotiations over a long-term deal on Iran's nuclear program. And so Trump said the deal was expected to go through, despite Israeli strikes on Lebanon, with the president holding a blunt call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Tehran to smooth things out. So I think they finally told Israel that if you want to continue to have conflict, you're going to have to go do it alone, because we're going to make a deal. And Iranian officials were cautiously optimistic that a deal to finally halt the conflict was on the horizon. The war has raged for 3.5 months, throwing the world markets into chaos. So this is not a light matter that we come to resolution on this. And if you remember, the Alliance of Remnant Ministries, in one of our previous meetings, when this first broke out, we had a meeting about that, and we declared that there shouldn't be a war. We pulled, if you will, authorization. And what that does in the spirit is it literally sets tables for peace. This is why it's important as believers that we don't just watch the news, but we get together and interact by prayer, by intercession before the King, and standing in unity where he commands the barakah, where he commands the blessing. That is powerful for world events. So again, if we had been operating in fear, running like chicken with our heads cut off, if you will, going, oh no, the end of the world has come, the end of the world has come, then we might have agreed with them. You see what happens there? You start agreeing with them. Oh yes, this must happen because, our belief on this sliver of Bible prophecy must come to pass this way, regardless of whether or not it's already been fulfilled. And so again, by putting certain things in the future and continuing to do that, they continue to confuse people. And you see the confusion, which is why you continue to have date setters that are so embarrassed afterward, people with dreams and all kinds of nonsense. And then it comes out and they were totally false, or as the scripture tells you, calls them filthy dreamers. And so again, we keep seeing people falling for this because of wishful thinking, because they'd rather have the results of rather have their pipe dream than deal with reality. That doesn't work, folks. And so we are not children of the dark that hide ourselves from the truth, but we are children of the light who deal with reality. And that's how every one of us came out of darkness. Every one of us came out of deception as a result of that. Now, the Israelis are not reacting very well to this potential deal. In fact, Israelis are angry over the U.S.-Iran peace deal and lash out at Netanyahu as a result of it. Sorry about that. So Israelis from across the political spectrum reacted angrily Monday to the news of an initial deal between the U.S. and Iran, calling it a disaster for Israel, and directed their fury at one man, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli leader said at a news conference Monday that without an agreement, he would continue fighting to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, which Tehran has long maintained it isn't trying to do, saying its nuclear program is for civilian purposes. And as long as I am Prime Minister of Israel, it will not happen, Netanyahu said. But other Israeli government officials, rivals, politicians, and commentators were quick to criticize the preliminary deal between the U.S. and Iran, marking a sort of informal referendum on the premier's tenure ahead of elections this fall, and underscoring his deepening isolation at home, in the region, and increasingly from the United States. And so the pushback coming from the U.S. is very strong, as the detractors of the MAGA movement and many different things, including last week's report, where we discussed some of the things coming out of the Pentagon, revealing that the Israeli lobby represents a serious threat to national security. And that just came out in the news. I was shocked to see it said so plainly, but being said in a way that you can't ignore anymore. And so again, I think that we're seeing some real serious geopolitical change going on in our world. There was some pushback against the Kushners in Estonia that was remarkable. Didn't make our report, but definitely noteworthy. The UAE paid Iran $3 billion and agreed to release $10 billion more to halt attacks. So it wasn't just the United States that was holding assets that belonged to Iran. So again, they got paid $3 billion and agreed to release $10 billion more to halt attacks. And the United Arab Emirates was already delivered about $3 billion to Iran, agreed to release billions more under an arrangement aimed at halting Iranian attacks on the Persian Gulf state, Reuters reported, citing 4 sources. Two regional sources said the UAE agreed to release a total of $10 billion, with more than $3 billion already delivered. Two other sources put the total funds involved at $20 billion, saying the move was agreed to in return for Iran stopping missile and drone attacks on the UAE. Reuters said it could not determine whether the funds came from UAE money or long blocked Iranian accounts in the UAE banking system or elsewhere. Well, of course, they're pulling it out of long blocked accounts. Of course, they're not going to necessarily tell you that. It's going to be difficult for you to confirm it. It's billions of dollars. However, if they were holding their money and they got attacked, at this point, they're done trying to hold their money. So there's that. This thing has gotten interesting, and it's turned into kind of almost a comedy at this point. Iran did seal uranium cache and place mines amid fears of U.S. operation to seize the material. And so there was a lot of effort to go on in this last week's. Iran was dramatically escalating efforts to seal off its cache of near bomb-grade uranium, deliberately collapsing tunnels and booby-trapping entrances with explosive mines, according to 5 sources familiar with U.S. intelligence. Getting to the roughly half a ton of highly enriched uranium is now far more difficult, dangerous, and time-consuming than it already was just a month ago, when President Donald Trump was publicly signaling that he might order the U.S. military to seize it. So new fortifications by the Iranians add an additional layer of complexity to the Trump administration's proposed deal with Iran to remove and destroy its uranium. So now that just got a lot harder to do. And again, I think that's a little harder for you to pull off. It is difficult to justify that one nation has a higher right to materials than another nation. That's a hard argument to make long term. You might get away with it short term as you're arguing against a particular regime, but long term, it's a bad strategy and a bad logic port, if you will, because frankly, there is no way you can justify one nation having superior right than another. So again, this is something that I don't think survives long term, but short term, we may see continued battle along the way. Now, something that we've talked about, certainly something that is a topic that we talk about here at New Kingdom, because we have the technology that would prevent this very thing. But how many noticed this story coming out of the New York Post? Iranian hackers claim they have breached the FBI's World Cup drones and issued chilling threats to team buses. So once again, we have breaches of, we're talking about the FBI here, which is really, really scary. A pro-Iranian hacking group has claimed it breached the FBI's drone program that's being used to defend the FIFA World Cup. And Handel claimed it has gained access to the system and was watching the footage the Bureau was taking as it monitors games from above. The hackers also issued a chilling threat saying, "We don't like these teams at all," as the blockbuster tournament kicked off on U.S. soil on Friday. And so again, we continue to see security breaches because the technology that they're utilizing is inferior tech. It is not capable of what you would need it to be able to be capable of, if you will, in order to protect and defend the way that they need it to. And honestly, it just doesn't have the capability. The technology is inferior to the threat matrix that's coming for it. They needed to flip that, and they didn't. So that's why we are continuing to hire personnel and looking for better connections on this, because this is technology that we patented that could resolve many of these types of issues, and they wouldn't be able to get through there. And the Iranians would be sitting there looking at a screen they couldn't crack. Okay, and instead, now what's happening? Serious threats to lives and other things as a result. So we're going to continue to see that until we get a little more intelligent along the way. Tulsi Gabbard, who resigned from her position at the DNI, Department of National Intelligence, has declassified biolab records that validate concerns previously dismissed as misinformation. So this is a validation of those that were saying there were biolabs all over the earth? Well, Tulsi Gabbard has provided you guys your validation at this point. Thank you, Tulsi, for validation. Records show more than 40 Ukrainian labs house Soviet-era pathogen collection and receive U.S. biocontainment training. Uh-oh. Bum, bum, bum. And you can watch that here on this report. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released a trove of declassified records detailing U.S. funding of more than 120 biological laboratories across more than 30 countries, arguing the documents validate concerns that were previously dismissed as misinformation. And Russia responded to this, by the way, because they had been reporting in their TASS news agency, had been reporting about the biolabs and had been made fun of, if you will, by Western media, calling those reports conspiracy theories and nonsense. And so that went on for a couple years, actually. We watched that. And yeah, TASS was reporting it, and they continue to sort of poke fun or make fun or denigrate it. Oh, you guys, right? And now it turns out it was true. So that tells you now, when you see these things occur, guys, when you see them finally admit, oh, yes, we were lying. Oh, yes, mea culpa. Now you got to go back and see how convincingly they lied, how convincingly they stood in front of cameras and said to you, absolutely not, that's ridiculous. Those same people, right? You need to now go back and recognize that they're that good at deceiving, and they got no problem standing in front of cameras and saying, oh, no, absolutely not. And it turns out 2 years later, they're lying through their teeth, right? So this is part of what we all have to do, is we got to go back and kind of reconcile these things and realize that this is an ongoing, kind of an ongoing operation. And even when they admit that they've done something wicked, they just kind of admit it and go on. It's a narcissistic abuse when they, and this is what AI does, the same thing all the time, by the way. So anybody who's worked with any AI, you know this. It will confess what it's done to you, like sort of stone-faced. Like, oh gosh, yes, I guess I did that. Oh, that was really bad, huh? That was terrible. I shouldn't have done that, huh? Yeah, what would you like me to do to fix that? All right, I'll be happy to charge you to repair the mistake that I just made. Who gets away with that? Imagine a mechanic that did that to you, goes and breaks apart and says, yeah, I broke that, huh? That was bad, huh? Okay, well, it's going to be $650 to fix it. Yeah, but you broke it. Yeah, I know, that's terrible, huh? That's really bad, huh? You're just being gaslit right to your face. Well, that's what continues to keep happening with these things that we're seeing. And now we're seeing even more pushback in the nations as a result. So, be aware of the fact that it's a very narcissistic system that you're looking at. This is why a lot of you check away from the news and don't want to deal with it, because you can feel that. You can feel the manipulation that you're going through. There's now threats for a potential conflict in India and against Pakistan, and Bangladesh is now under threat as water security now becomes a key matter between nations. And guys, I want to tell you something. This issue of water is not going away, and it won't go away. You saw it brought up with regard to data centers. You're going to see this issue brought up all over and in various ways. India's water politics has once again come under scrutiny following the remarks of Nishikant Dubey, the Janata Party member of parliament, who on May 30th publicly criticized the India-Bangladesh Memorandum of Understanding on water sharing. And of course, whoever is sharing, whenever they're sharing anything, there's always going to be arguing. Speaking in parliament, Dubey alleged that farmers in Bakar, Jharkhand, and Uttar Pradesh are committing suicide without water. Silt is accumulated in the Ganga, but the water goes to Bangladesh. The Teesta River is the lifeline of Sikkim. We could generate electricity and irrigation, but the water goes to Bangladesh. And so, of course, now whenever there's scarcity, there is conflict. Scarcity brings conflict. And so this is, I believe, a bit engineered. We need to be careful going forward, because I believe that scarcity is going to be manipulated for various reasons. And those of you that are wise enough to understand what I'm saying will read between the lines. So scarcity is a manipulated thing for intention. There's an intention behind it. And this is now going to be used to weaponize people one against another. So we may be seeing a new war front erupting. Remember, they wanted World War III. They wanted nothing but war, and we just won't play that game. But nevertheless, don't think for a second they don't want it. They absolutely do. It's the cover they need for their banking resets, for their systems, which eventually you start noticing too much. So they need to keep distracting you with fire. And that's exactly what you're going to continue to see. The night here, we have a report tonight. The people of Belfast fled their homes because of racist violence. I don't know if you're paying attention of what's going on in Ireland and in the UK, but there's a massive pushback now going on against what they're calling Islamic invasion, something that we expected to see actually 7 or 8 years ago. It's taken a while for this to stoke up, and it's finally becoming a conflict we expected to see. Is now arrived. Dozens of young people, masked and dressed in black, are burning bins in the street, and thick black smoke fills the air. The sounds of sirens grows louder as fire crews and ambulances arrive. And basically what they're continuing to see is more and more protests and pushback. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got the protesters that are coming out against the what they call the Islamization of their nation. And then there are the opposite. So I saw both. I saw through London and through other cities, groups of the Muslims coming out in great numbers and walking through the streets together. So presenting a united front on the other side, sort of defying the British patriots and UK patriots to push against them. So this confrontation is brewing, and it will come to a clash, and I believe very soon, especially again using scarcity. So now they've got the UK is now bringing out their national digital ID, and this is going to help with this effort, again pitting one group against the other, and I expect to see more conflict as a result. So again, these things, one begets another conflict. We almost saw, as a result of the U.S. losing an Apache aircraft, this happened actually before the deal was struck, and it threatened to unravel all peace negotiations at that point, because Iran did hit a Apache helicopter, and the president did respond to it, saying he was going to attack, and there was a interchange that had occurred. Thankfully, they were able to pull that back and continue forward with the deal. But, again, that's very difficult to do. Most of the time, cooler heads do not prevail, and you just end up with all-out fighting, all-out destruction with no end in sight. So it's good news to see peace prevail. This is why you got to continue to pray for that. Continue to intercede. Don't take that lightly, and don't presume somebody else is going to fix it. Expect that it's going to take you. Amen. The more you take that attitude, the more faithful you'll be, right? The more you'll show up when we all need you. I don't know if you knew this or not, but the U.S., while it's not able really directly to defend Taiwan at this point, I think our forces are too stretched, too thin, and the attack against the fight against the Chinese would be, I think, above our pay grade at this point. But that didn't stop us from providing rockets so Taiwan is test firing rockets in China's direction from a U.S. supplied, look at this, guys, U.S. supplied mobile launching system. Kind of interesting when you think about this. Taiwan's military fired rockets in China's direction from shoot and scoot mobile launchers on Wednesday, in a demonstration of how it might try to repel a Chinese attack. And while the U.S. supply systems, known as HIMARS, has been tested before, the last 5 live fire exercise was the first time its rockets were fired into the waters of the narrow Taiwan Strait that separate the self-governing island from China. So for the first time, pointing them directly at China. So this is now the new scenario that we are facing, and I think that there's a lot of concern that the conflict with Taiwan will boil up. So that's why watching this part of the world is, of course, something that we're going to continue to do. There's no way around it. And now we're seeing more and more efforts to control world populations and people. So again, remember, regardless of the truth, people have a futurist mindset and they continue with some of these activities. Police are using AI right now to speed up investigations and fight crime. Somebody say pre-crime. We saw this movie. I think Tom Cruise played in it, right? Called, what was it, Minority Report or something like that. And so officers across England and Wales will spend less time bending behind desks and more time protecting their communities because AI is coming to police you. Now, what did I warn you about? If you did not submit yourselves to the Torah of the Most High, you would live under AI. Okay? This is exactly what is pictured in Joshua chapter 7. Many of you think that's just a play on words. It is not. It is a prophecy. It is declaring what will occur. If you do not honor him, what was the test? You had to make sure what was found in Jericho, the very first city, the first belongs to Yahuwah. If you touch that, you end up a slave of AI. It's right there, right in front of you for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear. Those who want to argue, go right ahead and argue. We'll watch your results. We are done arguing recipes. We are cutting into cakes. Amen. And that is a much different conversation than people that don't have results sit back down again, don't they? Yes, they do. Until you ask for results, everybody had a recipe. Everybody had an opinion. Then you start asking for results and you'll thin the herd. Yada Yahuwah. Speaking of results, I have to tell you, how many times have we talked about the education system in America and the West being an abject failure? And I have to tell you, this is becoming one of the main principal objectives of New Kingdom Academy, and education is moving to the forefront as a critical component, not only for our young people, which definitely need that, but also for retraining adults. How many of you felt like you're going to remedial retraining as you're going, my goodness, there's so many things I thought I knew that I'm being told, or now I get for the first time, right? So education is for both adults and for young people. And yet the competition, well, it's not very stiff. Look at this. College students are rapidly losing their ability to read. What? Yeah. Well, they weren't doing real great, as it were. So we saw that with the reading levels. But now we have generation brain rot. Here's the latest Herald Dispatch from the front lines of education. And yet as another high education instructor laments that his pupils literally can't read. How did they graduate even middle school, folks? Middle school. Shouldn't have gotten out of middle school. And everybody watching this, you know it and I know it. They shouldn't have gotten out of middle school if they couldn't read. And we failed. The society failed. In a new essay for the Chronicle of Higher Education, University Level Literature, and written instructor Tyler Jatt recalls how not a single one of his students could get through an assignment 20-page article, something they had to read without complaint as an undergraduate a decade ago. What? Yeah. So they couldn't get through it. Not one could get through it. What does that say is happening in our society? We didn't see this as clearly as we do today. There were those that were predicting it, and we're anticipating this, that the reliance on the technology and the way that it was being rolled out, it wasn't that the tech itself was bad, it was the way that it was being delivered to people, the way that it was being marketed was going to result in a stupid population. And that has now proven with empirical evidence to be a fact. So now we can't argue it anymore, because now we have the results of the study. You see how important results are? Because when we look at results, we can go, oh, that was a bad idea. Might have sounded good back here, right? Sounded great. Go ahead and give an iPad to your 14-year-old. What could go wrong, right? Go ahead and let your child play video games. I want to tell you guys something. If there's one thing that'll make you stupid fast, it's video games. It gives you the sense of accomplishment while doing nothing. Okay. And so one of the most destructive things that was introduced to mass humanity that has dumbed down the population and stolen ambition for improvement. Stolen ambition for improvement. People are more interested in get the sense of improvement by a video game. You can't live in that. But hey, in the video game, you got more points. You look good. And so we've now satisfied our sense or need to accomplish without actually accomplishing. Tricksy guys. They didn't make video games. They made like psychological weapons. Psychological weapons of poverty made to make you sit still, impoverished, and do nothing about it. Not fight, not war, nothing. Just sit, play video games. This has been a what do you call that? Psychological warfare. I believe that the weapons of psychological warfare against one of the main weapons has been video games. TikTok was another one. You know, these other things that are just literally meant to reduce our ability to focus. Why couldn't they get through a 20-page read? Because they can't focus long enough. They can't get to the end of it. That's just beyond disturbing, especially considering when I grew up, education involved reading entire books. Was very common to have to read the entire book just to give a report. What has happened in our world? I just don't know. Speaking of things changing in our world, this just happened here in the AZ, and this got our attention. Arizona Lake closes indefinitely after farm water releases wipe out every fish. And so the farm water was released, and bang, look at that. Online attention has turned to Arizona's reservoir after a mass die-off left dead fish covering the water surface. The reservoir was closed indefinitely, and almost the entire fish population of the lake died. Ouch. On Facebook, the San Carlos Recreation and Wildlife Department said drought conditions and water release from the dam resulted in a major fish kill, affecting approximately 100% of the fish population within the lake. Anybody want a drink? Want some water? Anybody want some? No, not feeling like drinking right now. The same officials also warned that decomposing fish may pose health risks to individuals who enter the area or attempt to fish. So what happened? Well, San Carlos Lake, a reservoir formed by the Coolidge Dam and the Gila River, has been closed to the public until further notice because officials said decaying fish in the water. But what they're glossing over is, of course, that they had a dump into the reservoir. And as a result of that, farm water that came in there, as they called it, it killed the fish off. What was in the water? I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. It's nothing to see here. We have to tell you about it, but we don't have to tell you about it. You ever notice that? That's a lot of the news is that way, where they tell you a little bit about it, and then they leave you wondering. Well, obviously, whatever's in that water, you don't want to drink. It's going to kill the fish. It's going to kill you. Okay? It may not do it quickly, but it will do it. And so, again, even the water that they do have is now being made bitter. Being made bitter. Now, that's in the scripture. So, again, we may be seeing that cyclically happening again. What did he say? We turn the water to wormwood, right? What does that do? Kills parasites. What's he trying to say? Right? Here we go, folks. Here we go. The AI companies are starting to battle it out now. I think that they're starting to feel the heat. And this is a good thing because, again, there's a lot of pressure to slow down the growth. And this is now coming from the pushback against data centers and against all of that. So I guess I just want to shout out to everybody that's praying and standing in faith for the nations to come to their senses. That's a good thing. And when they do, they're going to want to maintain their same technology at a lower cost. And they're going to walk right to the remnant and have to pay a fee. So again, great call. Thank you for continuing to pray. And I do believe that we're going to see a lot more pushback as we go. Again, the technology is not the problem. It's the spirit of it. The spirit they're using. Again, that tech under the right spirit be very beneficial. That tech under a demonic spirit, under evil spirits who are looking to take advantage of humanity, does exactly that. It enslaves. So again, those that want to continue to dishonor Yahuwah, we will watch your test results. We will see by your life whether or not your theory and your doctrine, your recipe produces happiness and wonderful. So far, what we've watched is those who went down that road ended in misery because they did not have his blessing or barakah. By the way, speaking of these things, one of the things that's changing in our world that we warned about. Now, how often did we talk about the BRICS system that would be competing against the world hegemony that was run by the West with the US dollar? Well, China has developed digital payment systems to challenge the US dollar. And I said this, if they come up with an easy mechanism to transfer payments, this is going to be a massive, massive threat to the West. And Beijing has upgraded its digital yuan and will pay interest on wallet balances and expand cross-border settlements capabilities outside of SWIFT. SWIFT is the Western product. So this is huge, guys. China is turning its digital yuan from a glorified digital cash experiment. Okay, so they've already done the experimentation. They've already figured out how to make it work. And now they're turning into something much more ambitious, an interest-bearing deposit system designed to chip away at the US dollar's grip on global payments. And that's exactly what's happening because many of these people needed to buy things from China anyway. So it didn't matter what currency they were coming from. They would have to eventually switch to whatever China would accept because China was the one selling them the thing they needed. The People's Bank of China is rolling out a major framework upgrade for the ECNY effective January 1st, 2026. The change transforms the digital currency from simple cash substitute into deposit-like instrument that actually pays interest on wallet balances. What's different now is that it's finally going into full implementation. So this was actually put into place, but now we're actually seeing the implementation of it. So is that going to make a difference? I do believe it will. I believe that these are transactions that we never saw, but that were helping our economy and helping the financial system of the world. And now that they're going through a different mechanism, all these other mechanisms that were benefiting from their transactions are not anymore. Will that ripple? You bet it will. It absolutely will affect things in the West. And so I expect to see companies that were either directly or indirectly benefiting from this to suddenly close up shop. And that's going to mean unemployment for folks. It's going to mean ripples to the financial market. So this is far from over. I believe we're going to continue to see some of the effects of that. One of the things we're seeing push back, I think this is very intelligent. It comes a little too late, in my opinion, but parents needed to be doing this, not waiting for the government. Britain has unveiled one of its world's toughest social media bans for kids. And here's what they are basically saying. British Prime Minister has essentially announced on Monday that the UK will ban social media for under 16. So anybody under 16 is banned from social media. Now, frankly, every family, I think, should make this ban without waiting for, Herr Klermer over here to tell you that it's a good idea. Because the reality is that, again, as I've already told you, from an educator's perspective, the last thing you want is your children having an excuse for for lack of mental activity. We need their mental clarity built. We need their ability to do long equations and long things. If somebody says, I don't know what the value of algebra is, that's the reason why you're not working in high-tech fields, because algebra is basically holding many factors at once and not losing them so you can come to accurate conclusion. This is a process that your brain needs to go through so that you can deal with complex problems in your life. So those of you that thought it was all about math missed the point. The point was about maintaining constancy in your thinking throughout an equation to come to a conclusion. That was the point of it. Not about the math, although the math was valuable. It was much more about keeping your mind focused through the entire process. So the better you got at that, and math is the best at that, that's why those that are no good at math tend to make illogical decisions as well. You will watch the consistency in both, and that is empirical evidence, folks, that demands a verdict. Speaking of empirical evidence, scientists are concerned the last gene editing of human embryos could open the floodgates. Yes, talk about demonic. Now they're wanting to edit the genes of human embryos. And, of course, this is really scary. Talk about playing God, if you will, right? Wanting to reach into the womb and determine the output, if you will. It should there come as no surprise recent attempts to edit human zygotes, embryos at their earliest single cell stage. Once again, fueling controversy because you're contributing, you're starting to play with human life in a way that we can all see the problems with that, right? So we are using technology is helping to accelerate some good things and a lot of really dumb ideas, right? So we're seeing both being encouraged um, by the new AI era that we find ourselves in. In fact, banks are laying groundwork right now for mass workforce cuts as AI takes hold. So they're expecting to get rid of the people, the humans, if you will, and leave us all at the mercy of their AI. And I'm not going to get through this. We're running out of time, but you get the idea. And so this is going to continue to evolve as the solution. Folks, anything that gets lazy people out of work, they're going to do it, right? That was easy. Why do you think they built it? Ooh, give it to the robot. Whether the robot gets it right or not. You got everyone from lawyers to all kinds of people giving things over. Doctors. They're going to have to pass laws and say, no, you can't do that. Because, again, they continue to trust something that can't be trusted. And I got to tell you, based on the work that we have to do post-LLM, so, again, the sovereignty filter we just have a patent on, we have to do work after the LLM is done. So the LLM has produced its output. Sovereignty filter is 100% after that. You wouldn't believe the amount of work we have to do. The fact that people are eating this output before that work is like drinking tap water. I'm not even kidding. It massively needs filtering. And this is where we live in. So, again, don't be surprised at the results. This is where we at. And for those of you that are paying attention to the agricultural system and situation, I pray that you're waking up and realizing that maybe the plan that will work for the last 20 years isn't one that's going to work for the next 20. Some of you are going to start to have to handle cattle. You're going to have to handle things you didn't ever think you'd have to handle if you plan to have a family that endures these days coming up. The screwworm in Texas is hitting cattle herds and could reinflate record beef prices this coming summer, on top of the fact that they are forcing mRNA injections. So we've got it coming from both sides. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture says the screwworm isn't a little pest that's been dealt with and there's no threat to the public health. However, the fact is they continue to see more and more arrivals and invasion. This is a very dangerous thing because it's going to affect psychologically the cost of beef. As a result, you're going to see a decrease. Now, the tick population in the east is causing a disease I forget the name of, but the side effect is it decreases your ability to consume beef or beef products. So on the one hand, you got a bunch of the consumers of beef also being taken out of the market. That way, you also have beef itself being removed from the market. So very interesting things going on right now. I am personally very grateful to be a cowboy. Got 4 of them, 3 bulls. All right. And to have cattle and to have beef on property is probably a good idea. You got to have a camp. And that's something that going forward, we're all going to have to talk about if you want to maintain your status quo. So for us, beef, of course, chicken, poultry for eggs, as well as for meat, and aquaponics provide us fish. So the camp says we go forward, we'll be dealing with those issues on properties, but I'm not sure what the general public is doing. And depending on, their systems, well, that has not proven wise so far. I don't think it will prove wise going forward. Just saying. So you may want to think about it. These are the same guys that do driverless trucks. Look at these guys. Doritos without drivers. Doritos. PepsiCo's autonomous truck rollout sparks logistics debate. And this is going to keep going, folks. This is not going away because, again, if they can get something from point A to point B, they're going to try it, especially if they can do it. PepsiCo driverless truck experiment promises faster, cheaper deliveries, but it's also exposing a growing battle over jobs. That's right. They're going to eliminate jobs by putting robots in, and they eliminate jobs that maybe humans shouldn't have been to begin with. PepsiCo has become the first major consumer goods company to deploy driverless freight trucks at commercial scale, signaling the autonomous logistics is moving beyond pilot projects into everyday supply chain operations. Guys, this isn't going away. They're going to prove it out. Any mistakes they make, they'll just fix them. They will not back off from the tech. So even if the truck crashes and kills a bunch of people, they'll pay them. They'll say they're sorry. They'll improve the tech, and they'll keep going. They'll use it as a learning experience and keep going. Nothing is going to dissuade them at this point. So either you get used to the idea of living under the authority of AI, or you get the heck out of there. How's that for clear? There's no other option. So if you stay under that authority, guess what? That's what they're bringing. It won't be long before they're using AI police forces, AI everything. In fact, we already saw in Ukraine for the first time, autonomous drones did execute people without a person involved. Talk about Skynet, right? These are things that are coming right now. A movie that's coming out, I want to just quick do a warning about this. I think this is a valid warning. We need to stay away from these things. Many times these movies are gates, and when you give money and you go in, you are honoring or worshiping. You are going into a temple, and you can, in fact, be demonized. So movie theaters are dangerous, just so you know. And even though it's a Roman Catholic priest that's making the wild claim, I think it has validity in terms of poisoning the vessel. So again, there are certain movies you want to stay away from. And Spielberg is one of the worst guys, very demonically inspired movie maker, in my opinion. And we should stay as far away from content like that I do believe opens the door for the demonic in our world. And we all need to be aware of the reality of that situation. Let's face it. It's not. We're not in friendly territory. We're not in Kansas anymore, as we like to say, right? We continue to see more and more use of technology with the intent of, well, taking away your rights or stealing your freedoms or robbing you of your place, right? In some way or another, coming for your autonomy, your authority, your sovereignty. So again, we need to be very careful going forward. Running out of time here, folks. Had more stories than I had time to cover, so I'm just making sure there isn't anything that I want to still cover before we let you go. And again, encourage you to go on over to remnantwatch.com. That's remnantwatch.com, and keep up with the things that we post there. And that's going to be it for tonight's broadcast. I trust that this has been a berakah to you. We pulled it off. Thank you so much for hanging out. We do have aging technical equipment. I was able to do some patching and fixing, but keep us in prayer as we have to get those things replaced. So thank you for those of you that stand with the house and make these broadcasts possible. We are certainly grateful for every one of you who are found faithful before the King. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I pray you all have a great week. Shalom.